What if I told you? The kid who always smiled in class almost jumped off the school roof? What if I told you? The student every parent envied, the dream son, had written his own eulogy at 14? No drugs, no drama, no rebellion, just silence and pressure, and a boy who vanished behind straight A's and polite nods. This isn't just my story. This is about every kid who never made a sound until it was too late. Stay with me, because what happened next will change the way you look at perfect forever. They called me the perfect son. I almost died trying to live up to it. You wouldn't believe how good I was at pretending. Smiles? Flawless. Grades? Top of the class. Respectful. Polite. Quiet. Disciplined. I played the role like my life depended on it. Because it did. There's a difference between being alive and being allowed to be. I was alive, but I wasn't there. People loved me, or who they thought I was. But no one ever asked how much it cost to be that boy. Spoiler, it costs everything. Behind every "you make us proud," there was a night I cried until I couldn't breathe. Behind every "you're our golden child," there was a scream I swallowed because no one would listen. And the funny thing, no one ever noticed. Not even when I stopped eating. Not even when I started planning. I had it all. A stable home. Straight A's. A future everyone would kill for. And still, there was a day I looked down from the rooftop and thought, maybe I've already died. I'm just still walking around. This isn't a story about teenage rebellion. This isn't about failure. It's about a boy who did everything right, until he couldn't anymore. I was 13 when I realized I wasn't allowed to be average. Started small. A look, a sigh, a sentence that sounded like a compliment, but wasn't. Your cousin only got second place. But I know you won't disappoint us. That night, I stayed up solving math problems I hadn't even learned yet. Not because I wanted to, because something inside me whispered, if you mess up, they'll stop loving you. Love felt conditional, performance-based, like a scholarship you had to maintain every month. I wasn't abused. No bruises, no yelling, no chaos, just expectations sharp like glass. Dinner conversations were review sessions. How was the test? Did you make the top score? Remember, we sacrificed a lot for your future. I wanted to scream, do you even know who I am outside my grades? But I didn't. I smiled. I nodded. I worked harder. I became what they needed. And every time I got praised, a part of me died. Because praise meant I couldn't stop now. It meant the mask had to stay on. I had a little brother, Koi, 4 years younger, quiet, always drawing something in the corners of his notebooks. He was messy, daydreamy, sensitive. He once painted a portrait of our family. I saw it by accident. My face, he'd drawn it all gray. I asked him why. He looked down, whispered, because you look tired even when you smile. That was the first time I thought, maybe he saw me, maybe someone did notice. But I didn't say anything, because I couldn't risk it. I had a reputation, top student, future doctor, the pride of the family. I couldn't afford to crack, so I cracked quietly. I stopped sleeping properly, but no one noticed. I told them I was studying harder. They clapped. I lost 10 pounds. They said I looked more mature. I kept going. I started writing letters I never sent. To no one in particular. Pages and pages of, I don't want this life. I want to scream and break something. I want to sit in the rain and not have anyone ask what homework is due. Sometimes I imagine getting sick. Like really sick. Hospital sick. Just so I could stop for a while. Maybe even get held. Maybe someone would look at me and say, you don't have to be strong right now. But I never got sick. I was too healthy. Too responsible. So I kept pretending. I got a perfect GPA. My parents took me to a family reunion and said, this is what a real son looks like. Everyone clapped. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and bit into my hand until I bled. I didn't even cry. I just watched the blood. It was the first time something real came out of me. My little brother knocked on the door. He asked if I was okay. I said, "I'm just tired." He nodded and said, "You always are." Time passed. I got awards, certificates, medals. They hung them on the wall like hunting trophies. But every night, I stared at the ceiling and thought, I don't think I can do this until I'm 30. I don't think I'll even be here at 30. Then came the scholarship interview. National level. Pressure level. God mode. I was supposed to talk about my dreams. What I wanted to do. Why I wanted to be a doctor. I opened my mouth. But all I could think was, I don't want to save lives. I just want someone to save mine. I said the lines I memorized. Smiled at the right places. Nodded when they praised my clarity, my maturity, my ambition. Inside, I was screaming. I got the scholarship. My mom cried. My dad opened a bottle of wine. They said things like, "You're going to make history. We're so proud. You never let us down." I excused myself early, said I had studying to do, went upstairs, closed the door, and wrote my eulogy, not as a dramatic act, but as a checklist. Here lies the perfect son. He never failed. He never fought back. He never lived. Then I folded it, put it under my mattress, and set my alarm for 3 a.m. No one would be awake then. I had the rooftop key. I knew where to stand. I even brought my phone, just in case I wanted to leave a last message. But I didn't press record. I stood there, in the dark, wind against my face, and for the first time in years, I wasn't pretending. I felt real, not in a good way, but in a true way. I looked down, and I thought, they'll finally understand. Then I heard a voice behind me, quiet, shaking. On. My little brother, barefoot, crying, eyes wide. Don't, please. I know, I've known, for a long time. Just, don't leave me. And that's when I realized, I wasn't the only one pretending. I didn't jump. Not that night. Not because I suddenly wanted to live, but because of Koi's face. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't confused. He looked tired, like he'd been holding in a scream for months. We sat on the rooftop in silence. He didn't ask questions, didn't demand reasons. He just sat, cross-legged, shivering, and then he said something I'll never forget. "I thought if I stayed invisible, you'd be okay." I turned to him, but I couldn't speak. He continued, "Every time I brought home a bad grade, they compared me to you, so I stopped trying. I didn't want to compete. I wanted you to win, but you were dying too." His voice cracked. "What's the point of being perfect if we both end up broken?" I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it hurt. We were both pretending. Me pretending I had it all together. Him pretending he didn't care at all. Turns out we were both trying to protect each other from the same people. We sat there until sunrise. No big breakthrough. No sudden healing. Just two brothers staring at the sky, wondering if it would ever stop feeling this heavy. I didn't tell our parents what happened. Neither did he. We went home. I washed my face, ate breakfast like nothing happened. My dad talked about college applications. My mom reminded me about an upcoming speech I had to give. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. They didn't see me. Not really. They saw a version of me they needed to believe in. And I had fed that version for so long. Even I forgot what I looked like without it. But now something had cracked. It didn't show on the surface. I still got good grades. Still smiled in public. Still followed the rules. But inside, everything was different. I started skipping meals. Stopped replying to texts. Started missing homework on purpose. I wanted to see what would happen. At first, they thought I was just tired. Then they thought I was distracted. Then they got angry. "What's wrong with you lately? This isn't like you. You're ruining everything you've worked for." That last one hit me the hardest. Because it wasn't about me. It was about the image, the performance, the investment. "You're ruining everything you've worked for." No, I was finally letting go of everything you forced me to work for. Koi saw it. He stopped drawing, started watching me more. One night, he slipped a sketch under my door. It was me, Not smiling, not clean, not perfect, just tired. He wrote one word under it. Still here. And that broke me, because I wasn't sure I wanted to be. I started therapy. Not because my parents sent me, of course not. They didn't believe in wasting money on feelings. It was a school counselor. The one teacher who noticed I never made eye contact anymore. At first, I lied in every session. Said I was just stressed. Said it was just pressure. Said I was fine. But the lies tasted like metal in my mouth. Eventually, I said the words out loud. I don't know who I am if I'm not perfect. The therapist didn't try to fix me. She just listened. It was the first time silence didn't feel like a punishment. I started journaling. Not about achievements. Just feelings. Ugly ones. Messy ones. Ones I didn't even know I was allowed to have. Koi read them sometimes. He'd leave notes in the margins. Same. I feel this too. You're not crazy. That was more helpful than anything any adult ever said. And yet nothing changed at home. They still introduced me as the pride of the family. Still praised me in front of relatives. Still reminded me I was lucky. I started to wonder if I would ever be brave enough to tell them the truth. And if I did, would they even believe me? One night I imagined sitting them down, looking them in the eyes, telling them, your love feels like a prison. But I didn't, because part of me still wanted their approval. Even if it was killing me, I stopped asking for love, started observing it instead. How they hugged me when guests were over. How they smiled wider when I got an award. How their hands only reached out when I performed. It felt transactional. But I didn't want to believe that, so I kept watching. Quiet, cold, calculating. That's how I found it. One night, my father left his laptop open. I wasn't snooping, not at first, but the screen was glowing in the dark like it was calling me. I glanced. It was an old email. Subject, academic failure and custody terms. Custody. The word punched me in the ribs. I clicked. The email was 10 years old. I was 10, too young to remember courtrooms, too naive to understand why my mom stopped speaking to grandma for years. But the email said it all. Your son's academic performance will reflect directly on your ability to retain sole custody. The court expects proof of a stable, high-achieving environment. Couldn't breathe. I read it again and again. I was the proof. I was the exhibit, the trophy they needed to win the war. That's why my grades mattered so much. That's why slipping up was treated like a betrayal. It wasn't about love. It was about leverage. I sat there for an hour, numb, still, silent. Then I looked in the mirror and hated what I saw, because part of me understood. If you put everything into one thing, your pride, your future, your legal battles, you'd protect it too, obsessively, aggressively, even violently. But knowing that didn't make it hurt less. It made it worse, because now I wasn't just a son. I was a strategy. I wanted to scream. Instead, I closed the laptop, went back to my room, and cried so quietly even Koi didn't hear. The next morning, nothing changed. Dad still read the newspaper. Mom still laid out vitamins. Koi still looked at me like he was waiting for something to explode. And I realized nothing was going to change unless I burned it all down. So I started skipping classes. Not carelessly, strategically. Just enough to raise suspicion. Just enough to test their limits. And it worked. One evening, my mom stood in the doorway. She didn't yell, didn't cry. She said, very calmly, "We fought for you." I didn't answer. She stepped closer. "We sacrificed everything. You don't get to throw that away." There it was again. Sacrifice. Like I owed them a refund. I looked her in the eyes. "You didn't fight for me. You fought with me." Silence. And then, for the first time, she slapped me. It wasn't hard, but it was loud. Louder than anything she'd said in years. Koi heard it. He ran in, stood between us. And for a second I thought she might hit him too. But she didn't. She just walked away. And I stood there, cheek burning, wondering when exactly I stopped being a child and became a receipt. That night, Koi knocked on my door. He handed me a drawing. It was a house, but cracked down the middle, like a split skull. Inside, two tiny figures sat back to back in different rooms. One had my face, the other had his. Below it, he wrote, "We're not broken. The house is." I hugged him. I'd never done that before. And maybe that was the real tragedy, that two brothers had to grow up side by side, but only found each other through silence and trauma. Later that week, my therapist asked me, "What would happen if you failed on purpose?" I blinked. "I don't know. I think they'd fall apart." She nodded. "Maybe that's what needs to happen." I went home, head spinning. What happens when the thing holding everyone together starts to rot? What happens when the perfect son finally breaks his script? Do they fall apart? Or do they finally learn how to love what's real? I failed. Deliberately, brutally, skipped my finals, turned in a blank essay, walked out of a debate halfway through and never came back. People whispered. Teachers stared. My parents got the call on a Thursday. That night, my dad didn't come home. My mom didn't speak. Dinner was silent. Except for Koi. He kept glancing at me like I'd grown wings. Or horns. When I went to bed, I felt free. Like I had finally torn off a costume I'd been sewn into at birth. But freedom has consequences. The next morning, I woke up to screaming. It was Mom. Panicked. Gasping. I ran downstairs. She was on the phone. Knees on the floor. "They're taking the scholarship away." "What do you mean, probation?" No, he's top 10%. There has to be a mistake." There wasn't. I stood in the doorway, watching her entire world melt. And I felt nothing. That scared me. She hung up, turned to me like I was a stranger who had broken into her house. "Why?" Just one word. But it carried every ounce of betrayal, disappointment, desperation. I wanted to say, "Because I'm tired." Because I wanted to breathe. Because none of this ever felt like mine. But instead, I said nothing. And maybe that was worse. That night, my father came home. He didn't yell, didn't ask questions. He poured himself a drink. Then another. Then another. It was the first time I saw him drink in silence. Usually, he only drank to celebrate something I'd done. Now, he was drinking because I'd finally stopped. I went to my room, locked the door, sat in the dark, waited for the rage to explode. But it didn't. At 2 a.m., I heard Koi crying. It wasn't loud, but it was different. Not the silent sobbing of someone hiding, but the raw, gasping kind that breaks something open. I knocked on his door. He didn't answer. I opened it anyway. He was sitting on the floor, torn pages everywhere, sketches, notes, all shredded. He looked up at me with swollen eyes. "They're going to send me to boarding school." I froze. "They said I'm next. That I'm wasting my time with nonsense drawing. That I need discipline before I end up like you. Like me. The disappointment. The failure." I sat down next to him, held the edge of one of his torn drawings. It was me again, but smiling this time. Fake, perfect, with cracks spiderwebbing from the corner of my mouth. Koi looked at it, then whispered, "I thought, if you broke free, maybe I could too." And that's when I realized I hadn't freed us. I had triggered a war, and Koi was the collateral. My rebellion had consequences, not just for me, but for the only person who ever saw me. The next morning, he was gone. Not dead, not vanished, just gone. My parents said he was visiting an uncle, but I knew the truth. He'd been shipped off, hidden away, like a mess they needed to clean up before it stained the carpet. I asked to call him. They said he wasn't allowed phones. I asked again. They said I had lost my right to ask. I stopped eating, stopped speaking. Weeks passed. School became background noise. So did people. So did everything. Until one night, my mom left a note on my desk. Just 3 words. "This is killing us." No signature. No apology. Just guilt, packaged like a gift. And I finally felt something. Not pain. Not anger. Disgust. Because for once, I wanted to write back. Then bury me. But I didn't. I burned the note. watched it curl, blacken, disappear. Because I knew they never wanted a son. They wanted a symbol. And when the symbol cracked, they didn't grieve. They just replaced it. It was raining the day he came back. Not pouring. Just that cold, gray drizzle that makes everything feel like a funeral. I heard the front door open. Keys, footsteps, a shuffle of unfamiliar shoes. Then his voice, soft, unsteady. Is he home? I didn't believe it at first. I ran downstairs, and there he was, coy, thinner, taller, but still coy. His hair was shorter, his hoodie too big, eyes guarded like a soldier back from war. We stood there, staring. Then he smiled, just barely. Hey. I couldn't speak. I just pulled him into the tightest hug I've ever given anyone. Mom stood behind him, arms crossed, lips tight, but for once, she didn't say a word. Later that night, we sat in my room. Door locked. Like always, Koi pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. It was a sketch. Me again. But this time, I was sitting on the floor, head in my hands. No mask, no smile, no cracks, just tired, real. And next to me, he'd drawn himself, not as a brother, but as a mirror. He looked at me. I kept drawing you. Even when they took my pencils away, my throat closed. He wasn't telling me he missed me. He was telling me he held on to me. In a place designed to erase him, he made art. Of me, of us. You saved me, he whispered, by breaking. And I finally cried. Not the silent kind. Not the careful kind. Ugly, loud, shaking. Because for the first time in years, someone saw my collapse as something worth saving. He told me what the place was like. Cold routines. Punishment disguised as progress. Therapists who didn't ask, just diagnosed. But he also told me how he fought. How he hid sketchbooks under mattresses. How he refused to take pills that made him forget. How he told one counselor, if I turn into what they want, I'll stop being me. And I realized he was braver than I ever was. I broke. He bent, but never snapped. The next morning, we sat down with our parents. No ceremony. No fake smiles. Dad poured his coffee. Mom adjusted the fruit bowl like it mattered. Then I spoke. We're leaving. They didn't react. So I said it again. Koi and I, we're moving out. Mom scoffed. You're barely 18. Exactly. That's old enough to walk away. Dad set down his cup. And where would you go? Koi pulled out another sketch. A small studio, 2 beds, 1 broken window, a cat. We didn't have the cat yet, but we would. Anywhere but here, he said. They didn't try to stop us. Maybe they thought we were bluffing. Maybe they wanted to see us fail. Or maybe they knew. They knew they'd already lost us long before we walked away. We packed that night. Just clothes, sketchbooks, a laptop, a folded photo from when we were kids. One of the few where we were actually smiling. We left before sunrise. The city looked different at 5 a.m. Empty. Honest. We found a cheap place. It smelled like dust and wet paint. The heater barely worked. But it was ours. For the first time in years, we didn't whisper. We talked. About dumb things. Movies. Dreams. Memories that hurt but needed saying. I got a job at a bookstore. Koi started posting his art online. We made ramen and burned half of it. But we laughed. Out loud. And for the first time, I felt something close to joy. It didn't last forever. Some nights, I still wake up choking on memories. Some days, I hear my mom's voice when I mess up. But now I have Koi, and he has me. And that's more family than we ever had in that big silent house. They said we were broken, but maybe we were just breaking free. I hadn't seen them in almost 3 years. No calls, no texts, no birthdays, no updates, just silence. It was easier that way, until last week. I was shelving poetry books at work, when someone cleared their throat behind me. I turned around, and there she was, my mother, smaller than I remembered, hair streaked with more gray, eyes tired in a way I hadn't seen before. She didn't speak at first, just held out a bag. Inside were two things, a sweater and a letter. The sweater was mine, from high school, still smelled like lavender detergent. The letter was addressed to Koi. He's doing well? She asked. I nodded. And you? She added a beat later. I didn't answer, because I didn't know what she meant. Am I doing well because I'm breathing? Because I haven't tried again? Or because I learned how to fake normal in a new place? I didn't know what she wanted to hear. She looked down, swallowed. Your father, he's not the same. I nearly laughed. None of us are, I said instead. She nodded, slowly. He sees a therapist now, not because of you, because of himself. I see one too, I replied. Because of him. She flinched, like I'd slapped her. But she didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't defend. For once, just stood there, holding herself like the weight of her own silence might crush her. I'm sorry, she said finally. We thought we were doing the right thing, pushing you, demanding more. We thought, if you were perfect, the world couldn't hurt you. I looked her in the eyes. It wasn't the world that almost killed me, she cried, then, quietly, no drama, just soft tears running down a face I used to think I needed to please. I took the letter, left the sweater. Tell Dad I said hi, I said, then paused. Actually, don't. And I walked away. No dramatic exit. No music swelling. Just the soft click of the bookstore door behind me. Later that night, I handed the letter to Koi. He stared at it for a while, then opened it. Inside was a drawing of us, little, sitting at the dinner table, smiling, but not fake smiling, like she had tried to remember us before everything cracked. There was a note. I miss this. I miss you. I don't know if I deserve to, but I do. Mom. He folded it. Didn't say anything. Just breathed. And I realized, forgiveness isn't about forgetting or pretending. It's about letting go of the version of the past that still controls you. We didn't call her back. Didn't visit. But that letter stayed, pinned to the corkboard above Koi's desk. Like a scar, but a clean one. Last week, I sat in a park alone, watching people run, laugh, chase their kids. And I thought, how strange it is to grow up trying to be someone, just to survive. How strange that I almost didn't, and how stranger still that I did. And now, I get to decide who I become. Sometimes I still hear my dad's voice in my head, telling me to sit up straight, to focus, to win. Other times, I hear Koi's laughter through the wall when he draws. And that voice is louder. That voice saves me. Every time. Someone once asked me, if you could go back, what would you tell your 15-year-old self? I thought about it for a while, and I said, I'd tell him, you're not broken. You're just tired of pretending to be whole. Maybe that's what we all are. Tired. Not weak. Just tired. Of faking strength. Of hiding softness. Of chasing love that only exists when we earn it. But now I know better. Now I build love with people who stay. Who see me, even when I crack. Especially then. I used to want to die for being imperfect. Now I just want to live messy, flawed, real. And that's enough. If the story made something inside you go quiet for a second, like you just remembered a version of yourself that you've been trying to forget, then maybe it wasn't just my story. Maybe it was a little bit yours too. If you're still here listening, thank you. Really. Drop a comment. Tell me what part hit you the hardest. Or, tell me what stories you wish someone would finally talk about. No sugarcoating. No filters. Just truth. Messy, painful, beautiful truth. And if you've got an idea for the next video, a story no one dares to tell, a wound that still itches even after all these years, put it below. I read them all. Some of the best stories start from a single sentence in the comments. More is coming, and it's gonna go deeper. So if this one stayed with you, stick around. You're gonna need to hear the next one too. Don't forget to subscribe. But more than that, don't forget to come back. We're not done yet.